everyone? Welcome back to Brass Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, and finally, again, back in the studio.
Hey, it's Espen. I'm so excited to be back. It's been a while.
Yeah, and we've seen your hashtags bring back Espen. You know, may have been a couple people, but that's pretty exciting. So, you know, we are the type to give the fans what they want. So, Espen's back. And what a topic to start off with.
Oh, yes.
Today we're talking about, so you're casual heading into cEDH. Mm-hmm. And so essentially what we're going to cover today is a little bit just regarding, you know, our experience in cEDH, what we think you should know and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Before we go on, like usual, do all the things that you know you should do. Go ahead and like, share, subscribe, and comment. It really helps out a lot. And, you know, we've been seeing an uptick in all the interactions. So thank you guys so much.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So let's get right into it. So, Espen, what was your first experience with cEDH?
So my first experience with cEDH was actually with you. You built Anya, and we actually covered an episode on that in the past. But besides the point, though, it was fascinating to see and really piqued my interest. Though, like, I was not playing a cEDH deck at the time, so you could feel the difference. But I was amazed by it. It was awesome. It was
the Anya Dragon Tamer list, which recently on the decklist database, which we'll link in the comment below, they finally separated the Dragon Tamer list, so Anya is on her own section again, which is really nice because there was an experimentation with different Dragon Tamer lists, but Anya is the best, in my opinion. And so my first experience in the cEDH obviously is the same as yours. Magic Fest Columbus last year, I went down and I had bought the Anya Falconroth Precon, and I had seen on the decklist database that there was a cEDH deck, and I'm like, this is really interesting. So I looked at the list, and there was only two things that intimidated me about this list, which was Badlands and Imperial Seal. And I was like, this is going to be fun trying to get those, because, you know, I had already had all the fetch lands because I was a big Modern player, like everyone was at one point.
No, right, definitely.
I had sets of all the fetches, and I had pretty much everything. I mean, that Precon, and it still does, comes with almost every single Madness card you need. But anyways, so went down to Magic Fest Columbus, and I had no intentions of getting a Badlands. But I went to the...
Boy, did that change.
Yeah, I went to the Channel Fireball booth, and I saw it was the LP Badlands for $250. And yes, that's a premium because it is Channel Fireball. But I had a bunch of, like, a big bulk box of, like, various Commander cards, Commander staples, just random stuff. And I ended up trading in to get a Badlands, and I was like, holy crap, I just got a Badlands.
And that was your first duel, if I'm not mistaken.
That was my first.
You were ecstatic.
In our whole group, Mike got a couple duels that day too, but I was the first one in our group to have a duel, which lasted a whole 1 hour before Mike got jealous and went out and bought a Taiga and a Plateau, I think.
That's funny because I think that was like the same event where I sold like a whole deck.
Yeah, bad feels at the Modern side events, apparently. But besides the point. And so later on, I saw a Judge Promo Imperial Seal for about, I think they were $250 at the time, believe it or not. Super cheap compared to what they are now. And I ended up trading in Misty Rainforest and a couple of Scalding Tarns when Scalding Tarns were about 100 apiece. I ended up trading up some stuff, and I scored an Imperial Seal, and I completed the deck down in Columbus. And holy crap, just playing with people down there, playing with you guys down there, like, you could just tell what a deck is super powerful, just generically powerful.
It's crazy.
And yeah, it was something that got me hooked on the format, really. Like, just the super strong gameplay. And I'm a combo player by heart, so anytime I get to do something broken that's a combo, I love it. And so the next thing that you might be curious about is, how do we feel about the high-level gameplay? So, Espen, how do you feel about that kind of powerful gameplay?
So at first, since I didn't have a cEDH deck when I was introduced to Christian's cEDH deck, I was scared and like kind of intimidated. I was really intimidated, but now I finally got a cEDH deck together, mostly, and I love the high gameplay, and like high gameplay just creates so many lines of play that you usually don't see most Commander games, and it's just really amazing. I love it.
So, Espen, we'll just to try to break it down, we'll try to simplify this, and I'm going to overgeneralize this as much as possible just for the sake of simplicity.
Okay.
So, like, in a regular Commander game, you have you could probably argue there's like phases the game goes through.
Yeah.
So you have your beginning phase where you're playing your cheap mana rocks. You have kind of like a ramp phase where everyone's kind of casting ramp spells. You have a phase where people start developing their boards. Inevitably, a board wipe happens, be it Cyclonic Rift, be it like Wrath of God.
Right.
And then it moves to the point where it starts to get to the later game and someone takes like the lead. And various people take the lead in various parts of the game.
Right.
But in my experience, whoever has the lead first typically doesn't win unless they really like go for their combo or their line of play.
Right.
So that's overgeneralizing like basic commander play. Now cEDH is a lot different.
Definitely.
And I think that the lines of play are much more interesting given the competitive nature of cEDH. And I mean, you have your ramp phase. There's really no ramp phase. Your ramp phase is literally playing out your mana rocks and trying to run into your super broken piece right away, or you're playing stacks and it's resolving a stacks piece. And at some point, you're probably going to see Rhystic Study. You're probably going to see Mystic Remora. You're going to, and it's very interesting, you know, with like the Selvala deck, which I still built and I'm currently in the process of foiling out. That deck has recently went through some major changes to like the gameplay and what we do because currently, at least in the local meta where I play, there's a lot of like removal interactions. So new card that I'm really excited to try out in Selvala is Allosaurus Shepherd. Which is uncounterable, and it makes your Selvala uncounterable. So that turn 1, Selvala turn 2, and turn 3, I just play a Phyrexian Dreadnought and try to go to town and win.
Yeah.
And, you know, and most of the time it's not as simple as that because, you know, I'm not guaranteed to get that. So I have to be you always have to be mindful. That's what I like about cEDH is you can't really just play big spell and it'll probably resolve. You have to, like, kind of learn the lines of play that you need to take. You have to be able to read the table very well.
Right.
And it's not really a case of always whoever. Sometimes it's whoever combos off first wins, but but the competitive nature, it's still like kind of like the rock paper scissors where, you know, everything kind of balances each other out if the table's balanced. When you have a stacks player, control player, the combo player, and it's just a balancing game of who can go off first. And I mean, would you say that's fairly accurate? Like, it's overgeneralization.
No. I would say it's definitely accurate. Like, I would say that there's more or less like maybe like there is a building phase, I would say.
Yeah.
As in like casting your like preordain or ponder for like blue decks to look for stuff. But like other than that, definitely hit it on the nose that
your building phase is different. Like it's not necessarily about building a board, it's about building your hand at some points for like the control decks.
No, definitely.
It's a lot of sculpting your hand or trying to sculpt your way to a combo.
No, right?
And so I think that's what's interesting is that the lines of play may be similar. You know, I may be trying to get to one line of play, but how I get there is so different each time.
Definitely.
Like, you know, and it's just about being mindful. And you know, yes, we're going to have someone probably say, well, there's nothing tough about playing Thassa's Oracle into Demonic Consultation. And yeah, I kind of agree. That is kind of mindless. It was as mindless as... It was kind of as mindless as the Protein Hulk lines when Flash Hulk was a thing. But I still think in a balanced table of cEDH, you know, it's very unlikely that it's going to resolve. However, unfortunately, Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation go in a deck that contains black and blue.
Yeah,
so
right.
Most of the time, they're pretty resilient to, you know, Force of Will or whatever counterspell you're trying to jam against them, unfortunately. Which, again, that was kind of the same problem with Flash, in my opinion, was, of course, every good broken card is blue, and of course those decks are probably playing some form of control package, and why wouldn't they?
Definitely.
So, but overall, I think the lines are very complicated, and yes, you may get tired of the repetition of doing the combo, but if you do, it might just be time to like look for people that are playing the same level of decks as you.
No, right, definitely.
Because it can get boring. You know, when you guys before you got to cEDH, before Mike got to cEDH, and everyone started building powerful decks, you know, the Anya deck I was getting kind of bored with it, which is why it's taken apart to right now.
Yeah.
Because it felt like there wasn't much resistance to me getting to the combo. Like, you guys could put up a fight, but at the end of the day, it was always turn 2 Anya into probably turn 3 win, because I'd have infinite mana and, you know, Anya re-entering with because for some reason they gave her haste. I could just dig every time World Gorger left and re-entered. So
no, right.
So absolutely, it's absolutely you need to have a good like balance of power at the table. Definitely. If you're going to play cEDH. Mm-hmm. You can't expect to get full enjoyment unless everyone's at that level. And yeah, you're going to get enjoyment at first. It's really exciting if you play a combo deck. Combo decks are exciting by nature. I think that's why players really enjoy them, especially in Commander, because you get to play with like the Selvala combo. Like you get to play with Staff of Domination, Selvala, and Phyrexian Dreadnought. Those are all 3 super sweet cards that you get to just use for a combo. I think that excites me. And like with Anya, you get to use Animate Dead or one of those type of spells, and you get to use World Gorger Dragon.
And in Kess, I have a blast because I just got Ad Naus. So Ad Naus is just a really good field spell. And with Kess, you're already playing a bunch of instants and sorceries. Yeah. So like if you just need one extra counter spell, you can just get it out of the bin. And I just love the versatility of her. She's just so fun to play. I love her.
It's really exciting just being able to play that high level power level, and that's something that I really enjoy, and I would assume that's something you really enjoy about it.
Oh yeah.
And so the next question is, what should you expect? You know, let's say you're someone that plays around the 5 to 8s, and you wanna kind of dabble in the 9s and 10s. Well, let's expand upon the question a little more. What's one thing I knew when I went to like my first true cEDH table? I really wish I knew to not always go all out for the combo. And like, you know, some decks might advertise them in the description as an all-in combo. All because it's an all-in combo doesn't mean you literally have to go all in right away.
Definitely.
You have to be somewhat good at competitive Magic to like learn. Because in competitive Magic, especially like Modern, you could argue Standard can be like this sometimes, Pioneer. Sometimes you have to look for windows of play. You have to look for your window of opportunity to slip in your combo or slip in this.
Yeah, just like wait for everyone to tap out. Or like usually when I play my deck, people are like, do you have it? I was like, no. Which sometimes I will have it, but I see mana open. I'm like, I'm just trying to dig for counter spells. I'm trying to dig for protection. It's a really big part, which a lot of people are like, why don't you just play the combo? It's like, no, I need to protect myself just in case.
And the big thing is, especially if you're playing like a control kind of deck, which Cass is arguably, she has combos, but her typical list has a lot of control in it.
Definitely it does.
And a deck like that, you know, you're more playing the control kind of game. You just happen to have a combo, which I'm assuming you have Thassa's Consultation in there.
Well, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So like you have this really strong combo, but in a deck like that, you can't really afford to just go all out and then it gets stopped. You have no way to protect it, and now you have to come up with a secondary game plan, which, you know, I'm sure there's some way. I mean, there's a way that you could recover, but the easy win is Thassa's Consultation. Is just resolving the Oracle, playing the Consultation, just winning.
Definitely.
And that's the simplest way to win. And, you know, sometimes getting convoluted in cEDH is a bad thing. Where in like regular Commander, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
because
you just do whatever.
You can really do whatever, like depending on how your play group plays around you. You can do whatever, but in cEDH, it's like there's just certain windows that you have to look out for. You have to make sure that you're not going all in right away. Or if you do, you better be sure that you're going to win, or, you know, sometimes games get drawn out. I would argue I've never played a cEDH game as long as a regular game of Commander, but I've had one go for, I think the longest I've had one go was like maybe 10 turns. And that felt like it was a long game of cEDH, especially at 4 players.
No, definitely.
And no one was playing stacks either. It was just 2 control decks versus 2 combo decks. And, you know, it was just a matter of someone finding a protection for their combos. So I think in that case, I was playing Selvala, and I had a what's that one green mana spell that everyone hates? Veil of Summer.
Oh yeah.
I had a Veil of Summer to protect the Selvala from getting killed.
Okay.
And no one could counter it, so the control players were just pretty much done at that point because my spells can't get countered and pro black, so you really can't kill them unless you have white. And again, white's not the greatest color in cEDH. We like recently Teshar came onto the scene with the KCI list, but besides the point, is there anything that you think that someone should expect or should know before playing at their first cEDH table or dabbling into the format?
I would say, like, if you're coming in and you're like very new to it, correct? Yeah. I would expect very everyone's playing their best line of play. They're not trying to sometimes they're doing late game stuff. Most of the time they're like, what is the best possible thing? We're like in regular Commander, you're like, I'm just gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. So it's like, no, what is the most optimal play? And then which is also really nice for cEDH decks, you more or less can assume what is in their deck.
Yeah.
So like you kind of know what you can expect a little bit, though it is singleton, but at the same time it's like, oh, you're playing like blue or something in cEDH. Well, I'm assuming you have a Force Will, so
you could assume Force Will, Force Negation, some amount of like cantrips. Like
no, exactly, and just very fast gameplay and very fast combos too. So don't be surprised if someone just goes turn 1 I win.
And I would say, I would argue that the easiest strategy, in my opinion, but maybe it's just because I don't think combo is the easiest strategy to play at first, because I think there's a lot of nuance to the combos, because especially if they're a seasoned cEDH player, they're going to know they're going to know your combo more than likely.
No, definitely.
And so you have to like learn like when is the time to go for it, when is the time not. I would argue that stacks is kind of the easiest strategy to play. And not in the sense that it's just like I slam Trinisphere, I'm going to win. It's not like that at all. It's most of the time you still have to know like what stacks pieces to play with when. You don't want to like hurt yourself too bad, because I know when I was playing Brago stacks and you were playing the Muldrotha deck, we played a game where I resolved the Trinisphere and I didn't have a way to deal with your Muldrotha, and I think I had Armageddon too, and you had gotten a Muldrotha out, and it was just like, I'm going to play land, and I didn't draw any lands, and the Trinisphere ended up hurting me more. All strategies are tough to play.
They are.
I just think that if you're going to get into it, learn the combo like the back of your hand. If you're going to play combo, if you're not a good control player, don't play control, because you have to know what to counter, when to counter. And I just think stacks is like fairly simple compared to the other two, because sometimes like it's not always as easy as I play Trinisphere and I affect the game. Sometimes it is like that.
No, definitely.
Sometimes it just is.
Sometimes you just slam a card and then the whole table's like, you just killed my game plan. Sometimes you play a Rest in Peace against a graveyard deck, and then it's like, well, this is fun, or so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it can be as simple as, oh, you're playing like Marwyn Elfball. Okay, I slam Curse Totem. And you're gonna
Curse Totem.
Yeah. That is a brutal card, and that shuts down a lot of the combo decks in cEDH are activated ability like centric by nature.
And it's crazy because like I remember when I first saw Curse Totem, I was like, why is this card so expensive? It doesn't do anything. Why are people getting this card? And then I started playing cEDH. I was like, okay, I want this card now in this deck.
This is a super relevant card that has a super big impact on the game, and you're pretty much forcing them to pivot on their game plan to deal with it. Because if they can't deal with it, guess what? They don't win. And like that's literally sometimes with stacks. That's why it kind of feels good playing stacks sometimes. Because sometimes it's just good enough to play a stacks piece, and you're going to affect someone at the table.
You are going to affect at least one person at the table, if there's a group of 4.
Unless everyone's literally playing stacks, which is not going to happen, because if it does, you guys are psychopaths and should be locked away somewhere for playing a 4-player pod of stacks. Don't do that. No one will have fun.
That will be the most painful game ever. I would never...
Do you like playing games that last for 1 billion hours? Like, that's not how CEDH is supposed to be played.
Hey. We should do that someday.
We should never do that.
We should do that.
That is
comment below if we should try that out.
Absolutely not. But if there's enough comments, I'll consider it. So one of the final questions that you need to ask yourself is cEDH for you? Now, you've heard us talk about a little bit about everything about cEDH, the high level gameplay, what you should expect, what you should know. So is cEDH for you? How does it sound appealing? Does fast win combo win sound appealing? Does playing the best control cards ever win sound appealing? Does playing the best stacks pieces ever sound appealing? Like, you're playing the most optimized decks. And one thing that I would say that you need to consider when asking yourself the cEDH for you is the cost of cEDH. Like, okay. When I initially built Selvala, I paid about $2,000, and that was before the Gaia's Cradle spike. That was before the Mox Diamond spike. I got those cards fairly cheap, and now they're like, I think they're worth double what I paid for them.
Something like that, yeah.
And like they're considerably more, and that's just 2 of the expensive cards in that deck. There's a lot of cheap cards in a lot of cEDH decks because there's a lot of good cards that are cheap. There's
exactly.
and that's a great thing for the format, but there's a reason why powerful cards are expensive. Is because they're powerful. And sometimes cards like that have a premium.
Definitely.
And unfortunately, as much as we don't like it, Magic is sometimes a cost-prohibitive game.
It can be, definitely.
And yes, there are budget versions of, like, not budget versions, but there's budget ways you can play cEDH. There always is. However, if you bring budget Selvala to play, like, if we're at a table of Selvalas, and some player has a budget Selvala, and we all have, or let's say 3 of them have budget Selvala, and I have my fully tuned Selvala, I would probably guarantee that I would probably win.
I would agree with that.
Probably, I'll be generous, 95% of the time. I'll say there's going to be 5% that, like, I have bad draws, or I can't assemble the combo, or something happens, because there's variance. But I think the 5% is less about the power of the cards and more about the variance of Commander itself.
Right.
And so, Espen, is there anything that you think that they should consider when asking a cEDH for you?
Get ready to either win really fast or lose really fast some games. I'll say that. You're going to get more games in, I'll say that for sure. So, like, get ready to play a lot of games. But, like, I would also, because there's some people that sometimes, losing sucks. But then again, at the end of the day, it's a game. So you might lose a bunch, but that one time where you win, it's going to feel really good. Like, sure, you're going to lose, but, like, the games are generally quick. So you get back on your feet. Okay, that's a fun, powerful game. Like, sometimes you just feel good by casting a Cyclonic Rift or a Toxic Deluge. You just feel powerful. You're like, okay, I'm happy. I don't care what happens. Like, get ready to win a lot and lose a lot as well.
It's just the nature of cEDH is that it's competitive EDH.
Yeah, definitely.
And with that comes, there's going to be bad times to lose. There's going to be good times. And I hate to say it so brashly, but sometimes that's what it's all about, is winning fast or winning slow if you're playing stacks, or winning with a control deck. Like, it is a lot about winning.
Oh yeah.
And you have to be one of those players that's okay with losing, because you're going to lose a lot, but you're also going to win a lot. Like, it's kind of an up and down, because the sheer amount of games you're going to be able to play is a lot higher. So you're going to have a lot more chances to win, but you're going to have a lot more chances to lose.
Definitely.
I've had nights where I've played Selvala and I built Kinnan. As you've seen in our previous video, go ahead and give that video a check. We'll put it in the end of this the end of this video. But, there's going to be times where it's going to feel really bad. But if you're the type of player that doesn't have, they say about, like, quarterbacks in the NFL, you have to have a short memory if you throw an interception. You can't go back out there and let it be in your head.
Right.
You can't let losing, like, maybe you don't win the whole night, which recently happened to me. I couldn't assemble the combo. I had a really frustrating night, and I just didn't do anything. And yeah, it bothered me, but at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? It's a game, and I playing against 3 other really powerful cEDH decks, and sometimes that just happens.
It just be like that.
Yeah, sometimes it do. But guys, as you're going to see on screen now is our social medias. To follow the channel, it's at Real Brass Gaming. To follow me, it's at Hexmaster Real. And Espen, where can we follow you at?
You can follow me on Twitter at ESPN_1926.
All right, guys. It was great to have you back in the studio, Espen.
It's great being back in the studio. Feels great.
And we got a special episode coming up, hopefully next week after this episode.
Hopefully.
Well, guys, for the Brass Gaming Podcast, I'm Christian.
And I'm Espen.
And we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.